Hi, good afternoon or good morning if some of you are actually joining from the West Coast. As you join, let me know you're here. In the chat, use the chat function to drop your name and where you're joining from. We'll get started in about a minute. So we'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon and good morning. First, I want to take a moment to um, just thank Black women owned for their vision and giving women and Black women owners like myself a platform and a space to share content and services in a shared community. I think there may be a little bit of a lag here on the chat that I see, and you all in your chat version. So I see your chats coming in from Alabama, New York, Canada, Maryland. Wow, this is really exciting. So many of you are on this call today. I am Shaune Thomas Blanding, and I'm facilitating a quick 30 minutes on who's at your table, an introduction to networking on purpose. So why don't we go ahead and get our presentation up so we can dive right into this topic. Again, 30 minutes, we're covering networking, an introduction to networking on purpose. In the past, I've done this as a workshop, a full 2 hour workshop, condensed it to an hour. Today, we're doing it in 30 minutes, but I am convinced that you are going to get something out of this. And I like to just jump right into the question of the day and jump right into the topic. How does networking make you feel? So while you're adding that in the chat, just try and think maybe of a one word. It could be an adjective, a verb. But when you think about networking, how does it make you feel? For me, this picture that you see really resonated because I often found myself at work related networking events. And it would be, me as the solo Black woman in the room representing my company, who was either the sponsor of the event where I had a company logo shirt or a lapel pin. And I just felt like I always had to be on. So I'm at these networking events, shaking hands and smiling. But honestly, my word, when I think about networking, the word was greedy. I was always greedy. All I could think about was, I wonder what type of appetizers are they going to serve? Is there going to be a charcuterie board? Is there going to be an open bar? it I know it's not the right mindset to go into a networking event, but that's how it made me feel. So I see some words coming through. I see the word exciting. Okay. Um, Empowered, relevant. These are great words. I actually done this workshop a couple of times, and I've collected words over the course of doing this workshop. And there's been a very big range from empowered, okay, uncomfortable. I already told you my word was greedy, dirty. Especially post COVID, you think about having to shake hands, or maybe now we no longer shake hands, we just do an elbow bump, or the fist to fist. But people can range in how they, that word makes them feel. I see some new words coming through. Anxious, cringy. Oh, you guys are giving me good words to add to this list. And one of the things that coming into what I call networking on purpose, I really wanted to try and change early in my career that feeling of that anxiousness and that uncomfortableness, and think, how can I feel more comfortable when I come into this space. Um, One of the things I also consider is not just that word, but how it makes me feel when it comes to my level of energy. So, someone said energized and empowered for me. And if anyone on this webinar is an introvert, at the end of the day, you're probably exhausted. Anyone else feel that way? You're just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I was talking all day. I was shaking hands, had my little painted on smile. But I have friends we're at the same networking event, and after the event, they're ready to party. They're like, oh, let's go out to dinner after this. Let's go out to happy hour. And I'm thinking, ma'am, I am burnt completely out. If anyone else can relate to that, you know, more power to you if you're that person who's able to get right into the next thing after a networking event. But those of you who are like me and you're exhausted at the end of the day, I hope that you get some takeaways from this webinar that'll make you feel a little more comfortable. So we're going to just move into my goals for this next 30 minutes. One, gain a little bit more self-awareness. Two, learn a few networking tips. And then most importantly, just I want you to just be a little more comfortable navigating future networking opportunities, making sure you do it with a smile. I know I would often, again, I'd be in that corner holding my plate of cheese and crackers, drinking my wine, and just sort of feeling indifferent about the situation. But at the same time, I really did enjoy meeting new people. I just needed to come to a realization that I need to approach my style and how I go into networking differently. And for us today, I want to just level set on why we network. So why do we do it? For some people, they do it because it's fun. It gets them out the house. We're going to agree to, three core reasons. We do it for the opportunities. We do it to collaborate and share knowledge, and we do it to grow. So if we can all be on the same page for that purpose of networking, then we can move into how we can do this on purpose and with intention. So I don't know if you can see the third column here, but we're going to talk about identifying your strengths, defining your goals, and then leveraging your gaps. And I have a big disclaimer here because this is a skill. I actually looked back on how long I've been part of LinkedIn, and it's been over 20 years. LinkedIn came out over 24 years ago or so. And I've been networking for over 20 years, and it took me about the first 5 or 10 to really I would say build networking as actual skill and go from feeling that I'm networking just because, oh gosh, I just have to be here, to actually coming into this with purpose. So I have a really good sense of the folks that are in the room. I have a good range of folks who, at times may not feel as comfortable networking, and some folks who are like, oh, you do it for fun. So step one, identifying your strength in networking. This really comes to answering the question, what am I known for? What am I bringing to the table? I think this is really important because I often approach networking as, what am I going to get out of this? And this was a mind shift for me. It's not just about what am I going to get out of it, but what am I going to bring? One of the things that we just, sort of agreed to what networking is about is collaborating and sharing, right? So that's a two-way type of lane that we should be in. So identifying what I'm bringing to the table is really important. And I come from a strength-based leadership development approach. And in that, I believe that everyone has a strength. You could have more than one strength, but when it comes to networking and maybe thinking of a specific networking event that you may attend, I always want to answer the question, am I the triangle? Is that my strength today? Am I the circle today? So what am I bringing to the table? In a full workshop, I do a little bit more about this, but I want to hear from you if you know what your strength is in the chat. What are you known for? What would you say your strength is? I want you to drop that into the chat. And while you're doing that, I think I'm pretty sure that people are responding, and I just don't see it just yet. But one of the things that I encourage everyone to do, if you don't know what your strengths are, is think about, what do your friends say about you? What are people coming to you for? What are you always getting complimented on? These are things and ways that you can help identify your strength. No chat. I don't see it. I don't see it yet. So I'm going to go into the next question that you want to ask yourself. And that is, what goal do I need to accomplish? What type of table am I building? That's ultimately the question that you're trying to ask yourself. What kind of table am I building? At any given day, especially those of you who are on the call who are entrepreneurs, you might be building about 5 different tables. You might work on growing your business and thinking about growing your business. You may actually need to get those taxes done. It's tax season, right? Do you have the proper skill sets in place to get that done? At any given time, maybe you just need to build structure and foundation. There are all types of goals that you can be working on. My big disclaimer here is that you could have about 15 tables, but you can only sit at one table at a time. So how many tables do you want to prioritize yourself on? And maybe think about minimizing those tables and prioritizing your goals that you need to accomplish. But going into a networking event, a networking session, it's really important that you hone in on, what is it that I'm working on? What's my immediate need? What type of table am I building, right? So I see great strengths coming through. And these are things that I think, for you, when you go into a situation, when you know what your strengths are, that helps you with that elevator pitch. When you're going up to someone or someone introduces themselves to you, you can already know how you want to present yourself in that moment. And that really brings me to the next question. What actions will help me reach this goal? So I just, told you, for example, those of you who are entrepreneurs, maybe you are all about building your business. So I want you to think big actions. If you're growing your business, is it that your big action is you need a social media presence? Maybe you need marketing materials. Do you actually have your elevator pitch? Do you know your mission and your vision? These are really key things that I would say, whatever your goal is, understanding your actions and listing them out and prioritizing them is really going to help when you think about going into that networking event. So I see things coming through the chat: advocacy, leadership, organization, a lot of strengths there. Business consulting. Great. So I definitely want you all then to start thinking, before you go into a networking event, what actions are going to help me reach this goal and prioritize? And that leads me to, the most important question: who needs to sit at my table? Okay. This is important for us entrepreneurs. We get a list of priorities, or a list of actions, and then we start thinking about how we're going to get it all done. And this is the mindset shift that it's not the how, but who. Oftentimes we spend too much time doing something that someone else needs to be doing. I joke because one of my girlfriends, she was working on a flyer for her business, and she was on day 3. And she said, "Oh, I finished this flyer," and she sent it to me. And I thought, ma'am, if you don't get on Fiverr or or Upworks and pay a graphic designer $50 to do that for you, you just wasted 3 days because this does not look good. Stay in your lane, right? Not how, but who. Who is going to help me get this goal accomplished? So those questions are really going to help you in the next your your next networking event. So just going back to revisit these questions: what am I known for? What goal do I need to accomplish? What actions will help me reach this goal? And then who needs to sit at my table? And again, you can have 15 different tables, but you're going to go into a networking event really focused on one table. We don't have time to do an activity, but I want to introduce you to this activity challenge that you can actually do on the back end. And you can do this, you know, on a regular basis as you build diverse tables. So the purpose of building a diverse table is just that. Oftentimes we have the same people sitting at the same tables, and I don't think that's necessarily the best way to be productive. I challenge you all, if you all are Black women on this call, if you don't have a white or Hispanic male sitting at one of your tables, then you have some work to do. Okay. So, one of the things that you want to do, one, we already talked about identifying your strength. So, this is thinking specifically about going into a networking event. Um, you want to identify your target goal. And that again is what table you're building. You want to identify who sits at your table today and what gaps may be missing. And in this challenge, I want you to take all those people away. So you're at the head of the table. You have 6 individuals that you need to identify. And it says, one of the things I like to do is think about the individuals in terms of strengths, not necessarily job titles or demographics. And so, what that could look like, I may need a cheerleader on my team, someone that's promoting me. I may need someone who's playing devil's advocate, that person who's always challenging and getting on my nerves, right? So think about those types of personalities you want at your table, and then you want to find the best networking approach. Okay, so finding the networking approach. There are several different approaches that you can use. There's the networking event, which I think it's really simple. If you go on Eventbrite and go into, different types of networking events, you can find a local networking event in your area. You can find so many virtual networking events exist today. I mentioned sort of the work event. If you actually are still working in a corporate setting, maybe there's also, going to just a party, going to a dinner party with your friends. I'm going to focus on 2 tips today that sort of blend one another: the social media platform and then the workshop and training platform. So, this is my quick tip as specifically relates to LinkedIn and webinars. And I don't know if you're doing this already, and maybe some of you, if you already do this, I would be curious to know if you already use LinkedIn webinars as a networking tool. Maybe in the chat say, yep, I'm using LinkedIn, or nope, haven't done this, but I plan to. Quick tip: you can go on LinkedIn and in that header bar, put that you want to look for a webinar on XYZ. So whatever XYZ is, it could be what your table is. So I see Walton, she already uses this as a tool. That's awesome. Anyone else already using LinkedIn webinars? So if you're not, I want you to think about this today. If you already know what table you're building, and let's say you're building a table on growing your business. So, webinar on growing your business. There are going to be different webinars that come up. And the great thing about LinkedIn, it's global. So you'll see webinars that are coming up, and they're at 2 a.m., 1 a.m., any time of the day or night. So if you're, oh, I don't know what to do today, hey, join LinkedIn. Once you hit attend, you'll see a tab that comes up. And guess what? The tab is called networking. That was a little funny. Networking, but it's already built there for you. And once you do that, you'll see a list of who's attending. I mean, it can't get any more easier than that. This means you're connected to a group of people who already have a shared interest in your topic. How much easier can it get? You can just reach out to individuals that maybe you recognize their name on the chat. You could also, maybe I would say, this is my disclaimer, don't go out there and start attending 50 webinars that you really don't plan on attending just to get their attendee list. Don't do that. But let's say you're not able to attend a session, you can reach out with a note that says, hey, I noticed that you were attendee on XYZ webinar and I was not able to make it. Would you be open to sharing feedback, or is there anything that you had as a takeaway? This is really, I would say, one of the quickest and easiest ways to utilize LinkedIn webinar trainings as a networking tool. And there are other ways. And in the chat, I definitely I see some people are, again, my chat is delayed, but I see a couple of people are saying this is their first time they're using it or hearing about this. So this is my action item for you today in terms of following up with the folks that are on this webinar. So I want to hear from you. Which method do you enjoy most when you think about networking? Also in the chat, I want you to think about, how you feel knowing, okay, I have a few tools, maybe one tool in my toolkit, and I want you to share that as we approach, the end of this 30 minutes. I want you to think about, how are you going to think about doing networking differently? If you can share that in the chat. I know for me personally, when I go into networking, I prefer this sort of online social, approach. I often reach out to people on LinkedIn just based on doing a search to see, what their background may be, and just doing I would say a blind cold call. I think that has helped me really build a strong network. As I mentioned, I've been on LinkedIn since its inception. So I have a lot of people in the network, but I don't typically reach out to them. So I actually make it very intentional in my approach to say, I'm going to reach out to individuals, just do quick check-ins on the messaging. And that really has helped, me build my network. And that's something that if you are building, your business, as most of you are, as part of this, webinar today, it's okay. A lot of people are open to building their business. It's just a matter of, again, understanding that give and take and what you're bringing to the table. Let's see. I have some folks that are saying they're going to start creating a diverse table. Maybe read fewer books at in-person events. Oh no, reading books at the in-person. That's just as bad as me, going straight to the charcuterie boards, because, you can't really talk when you have cheese, crackers, wine in your hand. All right. So let's see what I'm doing a time check. And I actually must have flown through these slides, or didn't get a whole lot of, seeing the chat in real time. But I'm actually curious if you have any questions. Better preparation for achieving a specific goal. Yes. So the winging it as you go is really, if you have more intent and purpose on the front end, That's really key to making sure you feel successful and more comfortable. So let's go into I'm wrapped up in 30 minutes. I can't believe it. I'm a little early, but I want to just go into a little bit more about who I am in this final minute and how you can contact me. If you want to hear more and learn more about networking, attend a full workshop, I would just ask that you send me an email, Shaune@mindyourpurpose.com. You can also just connect with me on LinkedIn. That would be a step two. A little bit about Mind Your Purpose. We are a company where wellness, development, and purpose intersect and connect. And we love partnering with individuals and small business owners to help them operate in their strengths. Most recently launching our wellness travel company. So we're really excited about that. And that's the table I'm building today. So that QR code there is for you all to join and follow Travel is the Therapy on LinkedIn. It's new. I have zero followers right now. So if you get on there, I've accomplished my goal for the day. Oh, someone says they need help making small talk. Oh, yeah, small talk is going to definitely be a whole nother workshop there. So, how do you feel about paid networking groups? Paid networking groups, I think, are awesome. I think if you have an opportunity to get in with a niche group that may have a focus on your interest, there's a shared interest. I think a paid networking group can give you a good ROI. So, I think that's going to wrap up what I have for today. I just thank you all for joining the workshop. Who's at your table? I think there has been a good introduction. There's only so much you can introduce in 30 minutes, but I hope that you are taking away some good takeaways, and I look forward to connecting with you in the future. Have a good day.